As I've just been introduced, my name is Mark Watkins. I work for SSG20. I work as a partnerships, reseller and alliances manager, so I head up the teams working with various industries. These types of events are really important, not just for SFG20, but I think for the whole of the NHS trusts. It's a place for us to understand the challenges and opportunities that we have, and I'm here to talk through what we can do as a business to help you meet some of those challenges. Just scroll through. Sorry, going the wrong way. There we go. Now, one key area that I'm going to concentrate on today is the idea of the backlog that we currently have with maintaining our facilities. And it's actually in excess of £13.8 billion. And today we'll be talking about how we can meet that challenge to address that massive amount, but also how we can look at opportunities to further expand what we're doing within our facilities. So we did some surveying and we worked out that from the period of April 2023 through to March 2024, the cost to maintain the facilities for the NHS in the UK increased by 18% from the previous year, and it went up to £13.6 billion. Now, when we look at the backlog, which was also at that period of time, we can now see that the backlog of maintenance far and exceeds what we should be having at a safe level, and actually exceeds that yearly amount that we have. And we can talk about some of these types of backlog issues. They might be minor, but actually the majority that we found were quite significant issues that need to be addressed. And having budgetary constraints and not looking to tackle those backlogs has led to further issues which we know will impact and compound those types of things that we're looking to deliver. But the reality is it's not your fault. It's not the fault of the NHS Trust. There are severe, as we've said earlier, funding constraints with different NHS trusts, and we're here to try and evidence where additional revenue is required to help meet some of these demands. Now, the impact of the backlog can be felt through multiple ways. We know that it can lead to potential legal and financial implications. There was a fine, or many fines, one in excess of £2 million back in 2018, but the average cost of fines for being non-compliant with your infrastructure averages around £150,000. Now that means that you have potential legal sanctions, increased downtime with your assets not being maintained correctly, but reality is a lot of the money that you are spending is being wasted. You're not maintaining the assets to the level of standard that they need to be, or you might even be over-maintaining your assets. But that type of thing is only one half of the picture. There's also a human cost to the fact that we're not being able to maintain our facilities. The fact that we have non-compliant assets mean that we have non-compliant infrastructure. If we have non-compliant infrastructure, we might not be able to have as many appointments, we might need to cancel appointments, and that might then delay treatment for patients, which obviously can cause things like reputational damage. And the problem with this is that reputational damage or missed appointments leads to further scrutiny of the budgets, and normally means that we haven't actually got further budget to ask for additional maintenance spend. So it's a bit of a negative loop that we're finding, and if we just bury our heads in the sand, or if we just try to get on with what we're currently doing, this is only ever going to get exacerbated. And it's really important that we need to build proper business cases for doing that. And what we expect and what we talk about is the idea of justifying that additional maintenance spend. And we carried out a survey last year. It's called the State of FM survey. If you're interested, we can share some information on that. And that actually went out to many different industries, different stakeholders within the FM world. And we wanted to understand what the key challenges and opportunities were. And across the industries, including healthcare, the main one was budget constraints. The main issue that people are finding in maintaining their facilities is that they didn't have sufficient budget to be able to deliver it. The second priority, specifically for healthcare, was reducing operational costs. So me standing here telling you need to spend more money on that backlog obviously doesn't align with the challenges that you're facing. So it's really easy to understand how that backlog has grown, and it's easy to see how it can continue to grow, but we need to find ways to justify addressing that issue and securing that additional maintenance budget. we talk about building a business case, and that's by no means a simple exercise. Trying to build a business case to demonstrate the actual value in spending this money can be quite difficult, and quite often even getting that off the ground with the relevant stakeholders can be very difficult. As soon as you start talking about the risk, as soon as you start talking about the legal requirements, the fact that they are open to fines, you might then get engagement. But you still need to build an effective business case that outlines exactly why you're asking for this money, but not only as a way to avoid fines, but as an opportunity to address those issues so that you can become more efficient. Now, you can tell the people of those risks, you can articulate it, but you really do need that evidence backing to understand how you should be delivering it. And what we recommend is you can look through our SFG20 schedules. They will outline government regulatory requirements for maintaining your facilities. And it might be a case that you just need to concentrate on those that are statutory, those that are mandated by law that you should be following across your facilities. There are other types of checks that you can have, best practices or recommended checks, but in terms of us looking at that missed revenue stream, our first bet is to look at what we should be carrying out now. And what we can do is we can compare what you currently are working on to what the regulatory requirements are, and you can work out what that delta is. Now, you can also look at SFG20 to help build maintenance regimes that are tailored for specific trusts. We know not one trust is the same. We understand that each building or facility has different challenges, and therefore the type of work that you carry out or the duration of that work will be different. We have a traffic light system within our tool, and that identifies those types of checks that you need to complete down to task level, and those tasks can then be pushed into your operational tools like your CAFM or your CMMS. And what it does as well is it keeps you up to date with changing legislation. We had over 2,000 changes in the last year, and that reflects across the entire portfolio of assets that you're maintaining within your facilities. Now, some of those changes might be very minor. They might just be an additional task or a change to the type of work that you need to carry out, but quite a lot of them are very significant. New fire regulations, building standards, especially with things like cladding, all of those have an impact on the maintenance regimes that you're delivering, and the tool allows you to be able to verify what has changed and what is now statutory. You need to evidence that maintenance cost to build this business case, and that evidence can be formed by looking at the schedules that you need to complete against the assets that you have within your tool. That will then break down by your frequency, by how much time is required, the types of skills required for that work, whether you're going to do that in-house or out-of-house. You know, you can engage with your operations if they're in-house, or you can engage with external companies, but this allows you to understand how you can quantify that type of effort, and obviously, as I mentioned before, tailor it to your specific needs. You also need to understand how you should be focusing your resources. You might have too many resources in one department and less in a less specialist field that you need as part of your maintenance regime. So this gives you that picture of where you might need to make adjustments to be more efficient in the way that you're delivering your maintenance. Now, what you can then do is we've got this information, we've got the schedules that we need to maintain, but how do we evidence that into a business case that we can present to the relevant stakeholders? We can use what we call a forward maintenance register. Now, a forward maintenance register, and we'll share information with you today, there'll be a QR code or you can follow up afterwards, but it allows you to build the information that you have within your scheduled documents alongside with the asset registers that you have captured and the condition of those assets. And it will give you an indication of what your expected expenditure for completing statutory or even non-statutory requirements over the next 1 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, or 5+ years, so that you can justify why you need a specific amount of maintenance spend in your upcoming years. Now, it should highlight things like your asset's life cycle, which you can work out from the condition of the asset, the level of maintenance that you've been maintaining. And a lot of you who are familiar with maintenance within these trusts understand that the cost of planned and preventative maintenance far and exceeds the savings that you have by not having so much reactive. The more planned you have, the less reactive that you find. And investing in that type of effort and evidencing that type of effort is a really key way of building that. And this forward maintenance register is that tool. And as I say, I'll share the QR code with you, and what it does, it builds out exactly what your estimated expenditure would be based upon the maintenance regime you set up against the SFG 20 schedules which comply with legislation. You can then carry out a condition survey, or you can have existing information tailored against that, and also look at a backlog risk tool to understand what you need to address in addition to what you're just doing in your everyday. Knowing that we need to reduce that number down so that we can be more efficient. Because as soon as we start addressing that backlog, we'll then see that the costs that we need to maintain the facilities gets better moving forward. And as I said, this is not a simple issue. It's something that the whole of the industries across the UK and across the world are experiencing, but actually it's compounded within the NHS, given that a lot of the buildings and facilities we have are ageing and they need additional maintenance requirements. So it's not acceptable enough at this stage for us to turn around and say we'll continue maintaining to the current standard, because it's only going to get worse. But we also need to step into the shoes of our stakeholders. So we can build this picture of what the risks are, what we can get from having an increased revenue spend, but the reality is we need to tailor that towards those decision makers, the people making the financial decisions, the CFOs, the boards, etc. But I actually think it's really important to note that there are obviously other stakeholders involved in this, and tailoring your content and your message towards those stakeholders will be invaluable. Your IT departments, for example, will probably have a very big opinion about how this maintenance budget should be spent, and might also be a big champion for you to push forward. You then need to present that business case. That might seem simple enough, but you'll need to articulate what those key risks are, as well as the potential benefits. I think anyone can agree those making those financial decisions will obviously look to see what type of savings this could offer them in the short, medium and long terms. And those savings can be met by being more efficient and more sustainable with the way that we're doing it. Why they should be care is, one, for those savings, but also to reduce that risk that they can experience. Now, this isn't just me talking about it. These have been evidence in making massive savings. One of our NHS trusts that we dealt with utilised SFG 20 to work out what their maintenance spend would be for the coming years. And they had evidence backed up against the schedules and the assets that they had maintained to then secure an additional £1 million in funding just for that year. And it was easier because they had the information to back up what they were asking for. They did a condition survey, they understood the condition of their estate, they used SFG 20 to its full capacity to work out what it would require. And what was great was that they could then use SFG 20 to actually deliver that maintenance after. Now, I talk about inaction and we've spoken about what the risks are, but really it can cost lives, and that's not an over-dramatisation. Not being able to maintain our facilities can mean that we have people's lives put at risk, where we are unable to deliver the care that we want to deliver, but we're unable to do so because our facilities are not up to the requirements. And that's really important, and the cost of inaction is way too high to pay. And I think we have to think about, even a small maintenance miss, even putting something off that we need to do by a short period of time can have a massive knock-on or snowball effect. Not maintaining an asset to its required life cycle means that we might need to replace it earlier, or it might fail before we think it's going to fail, and therefore cost us way more than we have budget for in a given year. It's a compounding issue. As I mentioned, we have the tools to help you understand what your maintenance requirements are over the given period of time. There's a QR code here, but we can also share that with you afterwards. This just talks about how you can build that forward maintenance asset register. You can then categorise those assets, you can help understand what you need to deliver, we can work with you to understand how you want to build your maintenance regimes. And just to know, I know I've covered bits and I've tried to make it as quickly as possible so that we don't miss too much of the lunch break, but if you do want any further clarification or if you do want any guidance, we're more than happy to help. So please do reach out, we're here, or you can reach out to us afterwards as well. But I welcome, just looking at the time, any questions that anyone might have for me. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and I hope you found it insightful.